Here I was, ready to start filming the Saturday Morning Champions episode for this weekend in preparation for the fact that this was probably going to be a slower week. School has just let out, summer break has just begun here in Minnesota, and I realized that I was like, I guess I'm only going to get two videos out this week. I don't have the first video ready. I never filmed the deck tech for Iceman, and I think this is such a good deck that it should not be overlooked. So last Saturday, we played with Iceman against Mr. Sinister, and I would say in some ways this deck got a really good showing, and others I think it got disrespected. It did not get the level of performance that I think it was capable of. And I think this is a pretty great deck, especially once I started breaking it down into its component parts for this video. I was like, oh yeah, I see now what my gut kind of said when I was looking at the deck. And right off the bat, this is an Iceman deck that utilizes the original 5 X-Men plus Professor X. But yeah, this is just the first 5 in a leadership deck. And first of all, I love that we're able to have these different... We're able to get all 5 of the original X-Men, Iceman included, in a deck that's not Cyclops. I built a first 5 X-Men with Cyclops for Con of Heroes 2023 because that's what was available at the time. He was the only person that was able to kind of bring them all together. But now that we have Leadership Cyclops and Leadership Phoenix, that's completely different. And just right off the bat, I love that core conceit. We're going to dial back the power level initially to fit a theme, and I think that's really great. But once I looked into this and realized more about what made this deck so good, I really got impressed, because obviously we're playing with the first 5 X-Men with the ability to get them backed up by call for backup and make the call. Both, I would say, are in their archetypes, in the leadership deck that you're playing. These are staples. They're not going to be anything that a player, especially because this is a core set card, no player is going to not be aware of make the call and call for backup if they have a medium to full collection. This coming out of the next evolution, like I said, this coming out of the core set, like getting back these allies is super straightforward and simple. Phoenix acting as a additional Utopia, which we'll get into in a second. Mr. Fantastic. Professor X just being Professor X. And in the scenario that we were playing, actually we were incentivized to not put the confusion token onto the villain because Mr. Sinister adds threat to the main scheme when you do that. Which, I guess in this context, you could, in theory, say, I'm going to add that counter with Professor X being able to thwart for 3 to basically negate that. But I think that you're talking about a much more niche situation where you have the luxury of not having too much threat on the main scheme. I will also say that Mr. Sinister moved through his main schemes faster than I remember. I think I just got a bad draw. But then Cyclops being able to just pick an enemy and throw extra damage at them. I think in a dream scenario, I would have wanted to have Mr. Sinister be the target of this, but I had taken out whatever the... I don't remember what I took out. It was whatever the suggested one for Mr. Sinister is. I took out, and the Nasty Boys, and I replaced them with the Marauders. I had to have Cyclops aim his beams at a Marauder, just because they're a little bit chunkier, and they were slowing me down. Additionally, there were other things that slowed me down, but the Marauder was the target for Cyclops in the game. Beast, just wonderful leadership card. If you have it, you want it. An Angel, who unfortunately didn't come into play, but there was a scenario that I had where I had out the Uncanny... I had out Uncanny X-Men, and Angel could have cost 1. That would have been pretty good. It just didn't happen. And I think, spoiler alert, I didn't succeed in actually defeating Mr. Sinister. I think this deck would have done better if I had just prioritized trying to get the allies into play as much as possible. And I think I would have performed better. I think everything would have worked out better. I think if you're going to play this deck, just keep in the back of your mind that putting down an ally every turn should be kind of at the top of your hierarchy of needs for this deck. It's going to just make the deck work better. I don't think that Iceman is bad. I just think that the fact that he can only thwart for one means that you're going to run into a lot of scenarios where the main scheme is just going to kind of get away from you. With that said, let's get into some of the other packages of this deck, because like I said, once I started to look at it, I began to realize what was probably the most important. Kind of a small upgrade package, obviously, or this isn't even part of this, but it is an upgrade. But obviously, Iceman has a collection of upgrades that are all, is any upgrade, right? Yeah. That are all kind of like worth grabbing. Especially, I would say Ice Slide is one of those. I think that is, yeah. Those are all there are duplicates of some of these, but these are the upgrades they're going for. And having the setback being that it's 3. So you do need to have another way to take this down, but once you can go grab one of these upgrades, it just improves everything. I would even say that Frozen Solid, I think, has more use in this deck than I would normally put on an Iceman deck. I'm not going to pretend to be an Iceman expert, but initially when I looked at Superpower Training, I thought, I'm going to go get the Ice Slide, I'm going to go get the Power Belt. But I think that this is a deck where, with the power of Superpower Training, Frozen Solid actually has a little bit more use, and you're going to be able to see a lot more out of it. I included Honorary X-Men here because actually I think this is a very clever card, because you've got Uncanny X-Men, and how often do we see a scenario where you get an ally that has a trait outside of your trait, and suddenly that fumbles up your team card or other interactions that maybe I'm just not thinking about. But this just being able to be either an extra health boost for one of your characters or a way to turn that ally that you got over the course of the scenario. Unfortunately, we can't, we've only got one, so we can't like fix MODOK and change those allies into X-Men, but take that one key ally, and luckily we were in a scenario where we had hope, so that wasn't a problem, but that one key ally that's important, that's a linchpin to this scenario, and you don't fumble your team card just because you're handed something. I think the one that kind of messes you up the most here that you can't do anything about would be in Sabretooth, the Senator. I think you can't have upgrades put onto him, but either way, this is kind of a interesting future-proofing for scenarios, while also just being a way to, if you don't need it, just be extra health for your allies, which is just great. Speaking of Uncanny X-Men and supports, this deck has a lot of supports that you're going to want to use, and I only wish that I had the ability to have more of these out, because they're all very good. The Triskelion, I think, is probably the weakest, but I absolutely see what its use is, because you are a deck that is prioritizing allies. That's not a surprise. We're in leadership. We are in a ally swarm deck. The Triskelion is going to have use. I would say that this is, for the scenario I played it against, this is actually not as important, because you're kind of cycling through your allies on a pretty regular basis. So Make the Call takes up more priority than the Triskelion. But I can absolutely see scenarios where the Triskelion is going to be a card that is going to help, because you actually are going to be able to go wide, have 4 allies out in play, and actually get a use out of this. Moira McTaggart is just a really good card. I think that Iceman has the incentive to go to Alter Ego enough that you're going to want to get a use out of this. You're going to redraw that extra card. The other place that I get a lot of use out of Moira McTaggart is Deadpool, but that's because he goes to like Alter Ego all the time. But I think that Iceman, with his recursion, I kind of was almost relearning Iceman as I was playing the game. I was like, oh yeah, he has like a really good recursion if you can just set up the Frostbites really well. And so I think Moira McTaggart is already a good card in general, but I think that she takes on a lot of extra value here. Cerebro, I did not get a use out of. I once again, I absolutely see the use out of this, especially because our allies are not, in terms of what we could choose, our allies are not as good because we're going for theme. That said, these allies are actually pretty great, and being able to search them out is going to be great. And whether you're looking at the top 5 or you've got Professor X or Phoenix out so that you can just go look for whichever toolbox ally you need, stellar. Team building exercise, I valued this a lot. I think there is value to it. I have to wonder if maybe I overvalued it in some scenarios just because you need to either have Ice or X-Men. We have a lot of that, but in some cases this ends up sitting there because you don't have something to do with it. Although that said, you look at his cards, he has so much ice in here that you're gonna get a use out of it. It's just team building exercise actually, I would say, a little bit underperformed just in the scenario I was playing. I absolutely see the value of it. I absolutely see the value of having 2 of them. This is a fantastic card in a vacuum. It just sort of lost a little bit of momentum in key parts of the turns where I was like, okay, what can I do? And I would realize that like the math just wasn't working out for me. Like team building exercise was not going to be able to provide me an effective resource in the scenario. X-Jet, I think I overvalued. I think having the wild resource is good. I think I probably should have prioritized something like Utopia over the X-Jet, but that's just sort of, you're playing a deck for the first time. You just have to sort of gamble on what you're going to draw into and what is going to be important. Utopia, great card. I wish there was more copies of this because I think there might only be 2 printings of Utopia. This might be the only one. I don't remember precisely, but because I have to be the source of a lot of the entire card pool for friends. If we're playing double X-Men, you don't get to use Utopia as much as you'd like to. But great card. I wish I'd put it into play. I absolutely see the value in it. Uncanny X-Men we've already talked about. But I'd say all that because build support is a fantastic card in this deck. And knowing which support is going to be the most important in any given scenario is going to be really important. When you walk in, you have to do it with purpose because, once again, Iceman only has 1 thwart. So you need to have a really good plan for how you're going to get this down and then a really good plan for what you're going to grab. And that might be a point of adaptation over the course of the scenario where you are sorting out, okay, in a normal game, I would go grab Uncanny X-Men. But now I realize that Utopia is what I need because as much as it's nice to reduce the cost and give my allies an extra hit point, actually just being able to get that extra ready to get more frostbites down is going to be super important. And I think that's just playing the deck, knowing your deck backwards and forwards. Obviously, I'm playing some of these decks for the first time in archetypes that I understand but don't necessarily know how the hero interacts with them. And that's just something that I noticed as I was kind of playing the game back through my head, as I was editing the video, and as I was rewatching it over the weekend. Like, this is what I should have been prioritizing, and I wasn't using my player side schemes to the best of ability or playing them out at a time when it was advantageous. Although half the fun of this game is that you don't know what's coming. And then just wrapping everything up, we've got the power of leadership and the basic resources, the basic doubles. Great deck. I loved getting extra. I loved having Ice Blast feel powerful. I loved Arctic Attack just being great. And this was the first time where I really prioritized Chill Out. I definitely saw use out of this, and definitely this was one of the cards I wanted to recur. Didn't get Snow Clone out. Snow Clone is maybe my favorite card in the kit. I think it probably is my favorite card in the kit. I love what it's capable of doing. I love how the non-consequential damage can be so easily met by just having Iceman make an attack real quick. And then Frozen Solid, like I said before, I think has extra importance in this deck that's going to be really helpful. But if you like this deck, go tell the creator. I'm blanking on who it is at the moment. I don't even want to take a shot in the dark because I feel like I'm just going to get it wrong. But the link will be in the description. Go check it out. Go play this deck. I think it's really great. And yeah, I didn't want to pass up doing a deck tech just because I was in a bit of a time crunch for the week. So that is going to be it. I will see you all on Saturday. I honestly, in my heart of hearts, do not believe there's going to be a Thursday video. But until next time, thank you so much. Have a great day. And you are doing great. Keep it up.